All right, so traditional publishing versus self-publishing. There's a lot of controversy between the two of them. It seems like sometimes there's a lot of people that look down on one or the other. It seems almost like there's a competition between the two of them, but it's not quite that simple. So that's something that I want to kind of talk about today, is as far as like publishing books and that kind of stuff. So let's talk about it. So you might have to pardon my voice a little bit today. This is actually the sixth video that I've recorded. I've been recording videos today for my newest channel, Josh Bearheart's Reading Room, where I'm going to be reading through all of my books. I've started with the journal. I just finished recording chapter 10. So basically it's going to be a chapter a week that's going to be coming out. And I've been sitting down to like mass record them, and I'm not used to doing that much talking. So my throat is a little bit sore, but we're going to get through this. And we're going to talk a little bit about self-publishing today, because recently that's been a topic that's been on my mind heavily. And there was some interest shown in some of the some of the recent videos that I've done, as far as having more voices out there for self-publishing and that kind of stuff. Because honestly, I think the biggest thing out there right now for authors, whether you are traditionally published or self-published, it's hard as an author sometimes to be willing to go out there and market yourself on social media, to talk about your experiences, because as authors, we tend to want to just sit down and write and be in our own little worlds and then just put it out there and hope for the best, right? But that's not something that you can do. And that kind of brings to light the differences between self-publishing and traditional publishing that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, what is the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing? Well, traditional publishing, if you're an author, and especially back in the day, if you go back to the 1970s, 1980s, that kind of stuff, if you had written something that you wanted to kind of get out there, you would need to try and find an agent to put you in touch with somebody at a publishing agency, and then that publishing agency would decide whether or not they actually wanted to publish your book. And typically that would involve querying several agents. You send letters out. Even today, it's a very similar process, except you're usually sending emails instead of letters. But you would send all this stuff out to agents and say, hey, look, I've got this book. This is what it's about. This is maybe a brief snippet from it. What do you think? Would you like to represent me? And then that agent would look over that, and if they liked the premise, they might ask to, maybe send a couple of chapters over. If send over your first 100 pages or whatever, and then they would read that, and if they like that, they might decide to take you on as a client, and then they would, on your behalf, reach out to publishing agencies. Now, back in the day, publishing agencies pretty much exclusively worked with agents. Nowadays, there's some newer companies out there, some smaller companies that will work one-on-one with authors directly, but those are usually harder to find, and typically they don't take on as much of the cost as the bigger ones do. So we're going to stick mostly focused on, as far as traditional publishing, the big publishers. Offhand, I'm not overly familiar with the names. I always forget them, but I know Penguin Random House is one. There's a couple other. There's 5 big ones. There was 2 of them that were going to merge last year that never actually wound up merging. But there's 5 big publishing houses that publish the majority of books, right? And those publishing houses exclusively work with agents. And the process today is very similar to what it used to be, as far as like reaching out and talking with an agent. The problem, since 2020 especially, is there's a lot of people out there that want to write books. There's a lot of people out there that want to share stories, whether it is there's stories, like mine that I've got in my books here, but there's also, I think, a lot of people in the past few years have wanted to write memoirs. People want to tell their own stories, right? So there's a huge interest in doing that. Some people see it as a get rich quick type of thing. I can write a book and I'll get rich off of it. For whatever reason, people want to write a lot more people have wanted to write books in the past few years. So agents have been hit with query letters just left and right. They're getting slammed. And so for the agents, it's hard to go through and sort through those things. So if you want to be traditionally published in 2024, you are potentially waiting months, maybe years to hear back from an agent, if you hear back at all. I'm connected with a lot of other authors, small authors, on Facebook. And several of them have expressed the issues they've run into when querying agents. Now, So basically, you're sitting there, you're trying to query an agent, and let's say you get lucky enough that an agent reads your story, they like it, they want to try and sell it to a publisher, right? Well, the next step is the agent actually goes out with their contacts, and they'll reach out to the publishers they work with and try to sell your book to that publisher, right? When a publisher, in a traditional sense, decides they want to publish your book, there's a lot of different things that happen, but the biggest thing is that you lose a lot of control when it comes to what happens next, right? You still have control over the story, and for the most part, you can kind of keep things in line, but they might ask you to change certain aspects. They might ask you to change certain scenes. They'll also cover all of the costs. So when you traditionally publish, you're giving up a lot of control, but you're also having the costs covered of an editor, different types of editors, cover design. All of this stuff is being covered, right? Like I said, the flip side of that is you lose a lot of control over the process. But what it used to be is the benefit that traditional publishing used to have is that the publishing company would then work hard to market your book, work hard to make sure that there were some sales that would come in, because what happens is they come up with, they've got their own calculations in the back end to figure out how many sales they think that they can make of this book. So let's say if I would have published like Legends and Tales, right? That's my second book. If I would have published that through a traditional company, they would have looked at that and they would have said, we think we can sell this many copies based off of whatever marketing situation. And then they would have given me an advance, right? They would have said, okay, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars. Typically there's a huge variety within that, but you're looking at maybe $10,000 or $20,000 as an advance, depending on how many sales they think they can make of a book. And then you don't earn any royalties on that until you have earned out that advance. What the advance is basically saying, we think we can sell X number of copies. Based on that sales projection, we're going to give you an upfront cut so that you can, focus on writing, and if we want a sequel or whatever down the road. That way we can secure that we've got we're allowed to sell this. We get all the rights to this, right? So that's traditional publishing in a nutshell. And then, of course, they own the rights to the book. They own the rights if a movie studio comes calling, like they have full control over all of it. You have a little bit of say. And nowadays, a lot of publishing companies don't even do the marketing for you. They require you to do a certain amount of marketing on your own as an author. So that's where traditional publishing comes in. And for a lot of people, what winds up happening, and what I've seen, is that there will be a lot of people that have this dream of being traditionally published. And they'll go out there and they'll query and they'll try to reach out to agents and they won't hear back. And then they'll use self-publishing as a fallback. And realistically, that's not what you should be doing. If you need to be looking at the two things as two separate paths. Traditional publishing is this one path where everything's handled, everything's paid for, and all this kind of. And then self-publishing. Now, the reason you would go self-published, like I did, should not be about money, should not be about, the main reason is, for me, I did it because I wanted to have the full control over what is in my book, what's on the cover. I wanted to do all of that myself. And I knew that no matter which way I do it, I'm going to have to do most of the marketing, right? So when I chose to self-publish, when I released the journal, when I chose to self-publish the journal, it was because I wanted to have the control. I wanted this to be the cover. I wanted it to look a certain way. I wanted to have what I wanted in it, and to be able to then sell it where I wanted to sell it and focus on what I wanted to focus on with it. And especially for the fact that, they could have said, well, we don't like this scene in it. We won't publish it unless you take this scene out. Things like that. And that's not necessarily the biggest problem, but for me, it was a lack of control. I wanted to have control over the process, how it went, where it went. And I figured I'm going to have to do the marketing anyway. I might as well do it the way that I'm doing it. And I've chosen that path with each of my books, including Legends and Tales and GPS Signal Loss, which I should shout out a lot more often. GPS Signal Loss is coming out April 26th. It's about 4 weeks. Yeah, 28 days, give or take, from the time this video comes out. And so I wanted to have that control, and I wanted to maintain some level of autonomy as an author. And my mindset of it is, if a traditional company wants to come to me, if say Penguin Random House comes to me and says, "Hey, we really like what you've been putting out. We'd like to publish a book for you." That's something I can look into in the future. But for the most part, here where I'm at today, it's I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm enjoying it. I don't mind the extra work, because self-publishing does require a lot of extra work and time and money. You obviously have to market it for yourself, but you also have to get the book edited. No matter what you do, whichever way you go, you need to edit your book. And depending on who you are and how much how detail oriented you are, you're going to want to get other eyes on it. If you're self-publishing, for me, because of how slow I go and how I take my time, I'm very meticulous about things. I do my own edits. I do my own read-throughs. I read through multiple times. You'll notice, one of the big things with this book right here, you'll see this right here. Ignore the VIX thing, because I don't really have any real bookmark. I need to get some real bookmarks, but that is a bookmark, because I've been reading. This is the proof copy. I've been reading through this, and I actually found a couple of things that I needed to fix that I fixed before it goes live. For the most part, though, as I've been going through it, I'm almost 3/4 of the way through. I'm almost done with it now. But I've because I've been through it so many times, there's most of the mistakes that I made are very tiny. I called Steve a couple of times. Nothing major. I've double, triple, quadruple checked for everything, but I'm very meticulous about it. Most people aren't that meticulous. Most people will just write something down, they'll put it out thinking it's good. Maybe they'll let Microsoft do the spell check or whatever. You can't do that as a self-published author. You need to either pay somebody, which upwards of a couple $1,000 for a good solid edit, or you need to be meticulous and very, very detailed. And even then you can miss things. I know I've missed things every once in a while. So it's stuff where if you're going to be self-published, it's look down and decide how much work do you want to put in. If you don't mind putting in a ton of work, investing your own capital and your own money into it, and if you don't mind doing that, self-publishing might be the way to go. It's a ton of extra work, but you also get full control. You also get more. I get the majority of the money from sales of my book. I get to keep, whereas a publishing company might keep 70% and I would get 30% for royalties. Well, by publishing on Amazon, I get a 70% cut of the royalties. By publishing on my own website, which when I buy author copies, I buy the author copies at cost and I sell them on my website, and I get to keep everything above that at cost. So there's that stuff to consider, as well as how much do you want to keep of the revenue. In my eyes, if I'm doing most of the work, I'm keeping most of the revenue. And with a traditionally published Penguin Random House or whatever big company, they're doing the majority they're investing the majority of the money into it. So of course they want to keep most of the revenue, and that makes sense. But that's something that you have to think of for yourself. You have to decide for yourself, how much control do you want? How much time are you willing to invest? And then you have to go from there to decide whether you want to self-publish or traditionally publish. It's really something where they aren't they are technically competing ways to do it, but it's not something where you try traditionally publishing and then when that doesn't work out, you just decide to self-publish. A lot of people do that, but that's not really the way you should look at it. You need to look at it from the beginning, up front. You need to know the facts about each one and decide what you're willing to do. Are you willing to give up some of the money, some of the revenue potentially? Or are you willing to invest all of that and give up your time, give up some of your money to be able to have control and be able to do what you want to do with it? I can say whatever I want to say on my YouTube channel, or I can put whatever I want on my website. I can sell my books wherever I want to sell them, however I want to sell them, at whatever price point I want to sell them at, and not have to worry about whether or not some publisher is going to make a decision, that I don't like or I don't agree with. I can offer sales. I can offer things like that to people for my books whenever I want, however I want. That's the beauty of self-publishing. So that more or less covers the differences between the two. I just wanted to talk about that because it's been kind of a hot button topic within the writing community in general. And I saw some posts on Facebook that made me think about it. Like I said, there's other authors I connect with on there that everybody's got their own opinions. And to me, it's one of those deals where you choose one lane or the other depending on what you're willing to give up. For me, self-publishing was the way to go. I want to have the control. I'm willing to give up. I've got the time. I've got the money, the resources to devote the way I need to devote them. And I don't mind giving up that stuff to have that control back, to have that ability to do what I want with my books and own the rights completely. If, let's say, GPS Signal lost, go pre-order it on Amazon or my website. But if GPS Signal lost were to take off and become a huge hit, and a movie studio came calling, and said, "Hey, we want to make a movie. We want to make a TV series out of this. We love the concept." Guess who gets to keep that? Guess who gets to bargain those things and have that's all me, as opposed to them going to a publisher and saying, "Well, we want to get the rights to this," and the publisher getting the big cut of that because they're the one bartering. They own the rights to be able to sell the rights, right? So it's all of that involved. If you have any other questions about traditionally publishing, self-publishing, the process in general, I love talking about this kind of stuff. I've mentioned that before. Like I have some experience now. I've got 3 books that I've published, and so I've got some experience in the whole thing. And if you want me to talk more about that, if you're curious about some things, hey, hit me up in the comments section. Maybe I'll make another video based on what the comments are, or based on whatever I want to talk about as far as publishing concerned. I talking about writing and that kind of stuff. It's something I really enjoy. So hit me up in the comments section, and we'll see what come up with next week. So if you want to, you can go check out the Patreon if you want to get early access to videos. If you want to find out about those videos that I've talked about at the beginning on the Judge Bearheart's reading room, you get early access to all those over on the Patreon. You get your name in videos, all that kind of stuff. You get shout outs, and there's a lot of fun stuff over there. You can help support the channel, help me continue doing this kind of stuff by going over to the Patreon. Otherwise, just watching the videos, going and buying the books. Like I said, links in the description below. You can go over to the web. The website's the best place because you can get an author signed copy, and you're paying the same amount. If you're going to get a paperback, you're going to pay the same amount whether you get it from Amazon or my website. But if you get it from my website, you get an author signed copy. That's pretty cool. So, but I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.